Welcome back to another camera channel. Today, I want to talk about a piece of gear that has been super useful for our production work inside and outside of the studio. It is the Axsoon HE video transmitter. First, before we start the video, what do you think of this setup? And there's a little competition in there for you. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what lens and adapter combination you think I've used to get this shot. I'll collect names of all the people who got it right, and one of you will win a $10 Amazon gift card, and I'll announce the winner within the next 2 weeks. Also, I'm trying out a new LUT for this video. It's literally just a LUT, no other color correction on top. It's from a company called Gamut. If you're interested, there's a link in the description and you can pick up one of these color correction LUTs. And now on with the video. So there are quite a few companies which make wireless video transmitters. At the top end, you've got like Teradek, and in the lower end of the spectrum, what we're talking about today, you've got like Hollyland and Axsoon. And I'll tell you why I went with Axsoon after I show you the kit. And before you get too excited, it doesn't actually come in a Pelican case like this. This is what I've done for my kit. This is a Pelican 1200 if you're interested. Actual unit comes in a box like this, and this is basically just packaging. It holds the transmitter, it holds the receiver, 2 cold shoe mounts, and the antennas, and 1 spare. Basically, after you've got it out of the box, this is pretty much useless. I just kept it around to show you what it looks like. You'll obviously get a manual inside to show you how to use it, but it's actually super simple to use. You barely need the manual at all. So let me show you what's inside the Pelican case. This is how I've packaged it. So I have my transmitter and the antennas in this little section here. I've got the receiver and the little antennas here. And I also put in some USB-C cables and a couple of small MPF batteries in here. And I also add some slimline HDMI cables. They look like this. I literally just put them on top and close the box. They don't get damaged or anything, so it's no problem. But obviously to show you guys, it looks a lot better and neater if it looks like this. Looking at the transmitter, what you normally would see it as is if you've added the antennas on top. So let me go ahead and do that. So this is what it looks like with the antennas on. And actually, I've upgraded the 5G antennas to these ones here. And these are actually made by Hollyland. And I'll go into a reason why later on. But for the explanation part of this video, I'm gonna keep these normal stock antennas on so it doesn't look too odd. Now, as we've got the antennas on, let's talk about power solutions. And there's 3 different ways that you can power the unit. So you have USB-C 5V in, you have the MPF style batteries on the back, and you also have a DC input, which is rated for 7.4 volts to 16.8 volts. That is also the same for the battery. So I think if you use a dummy battery, you can use anything between 7.4 to 16.8. These small MPF batteries, what size is that? These are the MPF 570s, fit very nicely on here. It doesn't make the unit too heavy. And basically, your setup, all you would need to do is connect your HDMI cables and then hold down the button to turn it on. Now these are the CineView HEs, and they're actually a CineView SE set as well, and the S stands for SDI and the H stands for HDMI. There's a reason why I went with HDMI over SDI. There's some extra features with the HDMI set which you do not get with the SE. So I'm talking about an HDMI loop out. So on the SDI version, you only have an SDI in. So if you wanted to connect a monitor, what you'd have to do is connect the transmitter on the SDI out of the monitor if you have one. But with the Axsoon HE, what you do is you connect your camera or your HDMI source directly into the transmitter first, and then use the HDMI out to connect to your monitor. And I think this is the best way because it definitely will help cut down on some delay in the transmission, which we'll talk about a bit later on. And the other cool feature of the HE over the SE is you have this extra USB-C port where you can actually use this as a video input. So you plug it in via USB into your computer or your Mac, and it will recognize this as a video input card or source in OBS, for example. So the point is that you can use your camera wirelessly and use this as some seamless live streaming capabilities right out of the box, which is super, super cool. So here's an example of the transmitter in action. So what we're doing, we're using this MacBook here and over HDMI into the transmitter, and that's sending that signal to the receiver, and that's going out of its HDMI port into this screen here. And you can see the delay is very minimal. I think it's a very, very usable delay if you were doing stuff like follow focusing or something like that on set. Perfectly fine. But you can see is an example of another use other than onboard camera transmitters. So for example, sending a laptop signal to a TV in another room. Another use case that we've used it for is sending a multi-view of an ATEM switcher onto a TV on wheels. So it's more easy to get around the studio and we don't need any long cables across the floor. And also frees up those cables that we would have used to go on the floor. And it's way cleaner, it's way nicer. You can see there is a small delay, but it's nothing too bad at all. You also have access to the Axsoon app, which you can use iPhones and iPads and some Mac OS X devices, the ones which you can install iPad apps on them, like so M1, M2 chips, stuff like that. And you can view the signal that you're transmitting on these devices, and it's super useful. As you can see here is the iPad app. This is running on an iPad Air. You can see straight away that there's more of a delay on the iPad app. And you know, this is not going to be something that you're going to be using for focus pulling, I would say. And in my experience, the app version experiences way more breakups and lag over the HDMI receiver. So, you know, there's a trade-off. You obviously you don't need an extra screen or something. This is very convenient. Most people have phones, so like pretty much everyone has a phone that they can install an app on. So, you know, if you want to get more eyes on the screen, then definitely the app route is very good. But if you're being more serious with focus pulling and stuff, you're going to want to stick to more the HDMI receivers. And what's cool about the ecosystem here is that for every one transmitter, you can connect up to 4 different devices, or a combination of 4 devices, I should say. So you could do one single HDMI receiver and 3 iPhones if you wanted to do that. Or you could have 4 iPhones, or you could have 4 HDMI receivers. Now, the set only comes with 1 transmitter and 1 receiver, so if you wanted more HDMI receivers, you'd have to buy them separately, and you can. It's a pretty reasonable price. But I really like that you can add more screens for free just by using the app, so that's super nice. And what's cool about the app is there are lots of features. So we have like things like false color, focus peaking, LUTs, aspect ratio de-squeezes, grids, and you can also live stream from the app to any RTMP server of your choice. You can also screen record and take screenshots of the live transmission, which is super cool for people who want to do like check lighting consistency between different scenes. You have a nice backup of exactly what the camera saw on your iPad or something like that. But I think it's really useful for maybe the less important people on set who don't need to be huddling around the director's monitor the whole time. Giving them access to the feed on their phones, they can kind of stay a little bit more in the background and, you know, stay out the way a little bit more. Sometimes if everyone's trying to crowd around one screen, it can get very crowded very quickly. So super nice that you can connect different devices and it's totally free. Really love it. One thing to remember is that different camera brands and different screens will introduce delay into the pipeline. So don't think of delay as just the transmitters talking to each other like this. What you need to also think about is how quickly your camera is outputting the signal over HDMI and how quickly your screen is initializing that signal from the receivers. We shoot primarily on Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6Ks, the Gen 1 version, and we're connected here from the camera to the transmitter, to the receiver, to the screen. And you can see what the delay is, if it's more or less than the MacBook was. So let me give you some examples here. So there is a small delay there, but I think it's perfectly adequate if you're doing focus pulling with this system. But as demonstrated before, the delay over app is way more significant. But one thing to note is you do actually get sound over the app as well, which is really cool. Watch out for feedback though. Now we've covered the most important things, let's go to a range check. Hey, Xander from the future here. So the range test gave us some eye-opening results because really we don't use the on-camera transmitter at a very far distance. We don't really need to, but seeing how far they can actually go is pretty astonishing. So in our kind of low RF interference test, we got 880 meters with the stock antennas over the HDI transmitter. And just like the specs say, we got around 360 meters. It's meant to be 350 meters of line of sight. We got around 363 meters with the iPad app, which is pretty astonishing. I can't think of any situations why we would need that kind of range, but it was very cool to see that it happened. In our high RF interference test, we went into the city and we did a test on the streets in a situation where more people may find themselves in. And line of sight was a challenge here. So we only managed to get 446 meters with the stock antennas before we got loss of signal, like actual loss of signal. But I think that's more down to line of sight issues rather than signal strength. Everything was working pretty fine. The app also died at around 350 meters, so a little bit shorter this time. But however, we did experience way more breakups, way more interference and delays, and there were loads more lag and interference in the high RF zone. So very interesting results. I don't think I would ever need to use something that far away, that kind of range. I would be interested to try the test again in the low RF zone because the 880 meters was where we lost line of sight. So I reckon you could actually go further. It only dropped out a couple of times, and that might have actually been from some cars getting in the way. That we crossed a few side streets, so that might have caused some of the dropouts. But pretty much in the low RF test was amazing, and that was on the high quality broadcast mode as well. So super impressed, but again, don't think I'd ever need to use that range, but very nice to see that it could go that far. Now, we can't guarantee that you're gonna have the same results as our range test there, but we found that the range has been very good on these for our uses. We're not ever really going that far away from the camera that we need those kinds of distances. This is what it looks like with the enhanced antennas, and these are from Hollyland, and they come in a pack of 2 in a little box just like this, and you can get them on Amazon. There'll be links in the description. But the reason why we got this is because during the time of purchasing and time of research, there was another YouTube channel who have this set, and they experienced some problems on set, and they upgraded to these new antennas, and they got way better performance.
And immediately in our studio, we noticed a significant improvement on the overall image quality that we were getting through the receivers by just popping these on the transmitters and the receivers on just the 5 gigahertz.
So we decided to do the same just in case we were going to run into any problems. And I'd like to say that on the most part we haven't. It's actually been very, very good. Has it been down to the new enhanced antennas? I can't tell you. I'm not really sure, but we've been using them like this and we've had no problems at all. Xander from the future here again. So regarding these upgraded antennas, I can't really say if we can really recommend them that much because we had some mixed results in the range test compared to the stock antennas. Now, we already know the stock antennas did really well, 880 meters on the HDMI transmitter in the low RF zone. But for us in the low RF zone, we got very, very, very bad results. I don't know why, because they don't correlate with the high RF zone. So here's what we got. I got about 100 meters away, everything died. And also the app over Wi-Fi would just not connect. I'm not sure why that happened because this is the first time we've ever encountered that problem. But in that exact scenario, we tried rebooting the iPad, we tried rebooting the transmitter. It would not keep hold of the Wi-Fi signal and it dropped within maybe 5 to 10 meters. I managed to get 100 meters away before the HDMI transmitter stopped connecting, and we just called it at that. It's very, very odd because it doesn't really correlate with what happened next. So when we went to the high RF zone, so in the city where there was loads of other Wi-Fi networks happening, we got very similar results to the stock antennas. We didn't get as far. They did drop out earlier by maybe 50 meters or so. The Wi-Fi app connection maybe lost it maybe 10 meters before we got to the same distance as the stock antennas. It doesn't really make sense to me right now why these are worse in that situation. With these, it seems that the signal is stronger at close range. There was less lag and less dropouts in the high RF test compared to the stock antennas. But as soon as we got past a certain distance, these were way worse. So I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe you can let me know in the comments if you know more about this kind of technology, but for us, we're going to keep them in our box. We're going to keep them with the pack just in case we run into problems with the stock antennas, and maybe we can swap them over and see if these make a difference. But for now, I can't really recommend these as much as Threefold did in their video. And that's the results we got. Your results may vary. Some cool features about the HE and SE is it is a fanless design, so there's no annoying sounds coming from the units as they're on. There's 3 transmission modes that you can pick from: high quality, normal, or speed. For our purposes, we're usually on high quality mode to get the best resolution out for focus pulling. I will say that sometimes it's a bit of a song and a dance getting the apps connected. Sometimes the wireless SSID that gets transmitted from this that isn't always visible, and it shows me a different network called Pro Group 1, because I'm usually in Group 1. I can't connect with that with the default password of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But as soon as I get kicked off of that network, then it actually shows me the network I need to connect to use the app. So that's definitely one annoyance that has got me stumped for quite a few minutes on set while I'm trying to get a picture on the screen. But other than that, I would say that this is a very nice set for the price. I actually picked it up in the Black Friday sale, which I saved $100 off the registered retail price. So that was pretty good. And the reason why, I've gone with this brand, I've gone with Axsoon, is because, ideally I would love to own a Teradek system, but they're way too expensive. So for the uses that I'm actually needing this for, which is around the studio like we have and small jobs, a Teradek isn't really needed. And on bigger jobs where we are using cameras which have SDI out, so red cameras and things of that nature, they're usually accompanied with a Teradek system. So this isn't really needed. However, there is still a use case for this. Like I said before, if you want to get more screens to eyes on set, what you can do is connect the transmitter to the loop out of the Teradek system, retransmit that signal out to your receiver and or phones and tablets with the app installed. Obviously, things that are cheaper usually come at some kind of cost somewhere down the line, but actually I'm really happy to own this system because it allows us to use follow focuses on jobs where necessarily we wouldn't have the budget to go and rent out a Teradek for this exact reason. So I'm actually really happy, and it gives us a chance to practice and train in our off time without having to go to a rental house, as I said before. Obviously, there are other brands which offer competing products. I'm thinking about Hollyland and things like that. I haven't owned a Hollyland system, but I have used one on a set a couple of years ago, and I wasn't very impressed with the image quality that came out of it, and we were using it for focus pulling. It was very, very difficult, and this does seem more crystal clear to my eyes over transmission, but that might have just been an older Hollyland set. I have no idea what it was, but that was just my initial impression of Hollyland, and that's why I chose to go with Axsoon. So that about wraps up this video. I would definitely recommend this product. I really, really like it. It's been super useful for us, even in the short time that we've had it. If you're new here, why not subscribe to the channel and drop us a like on this video so we know that you enjoyed the content. And also leave a comment down below. What do you think of this setup? What is the lens and adapter combination that I'm using for this video? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.